Hello and welcome to your in-depth monthly horoscope for May for the Sun or the Ascendant. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, I'd be honoured if you did so now. Please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. Also, if you'd like to have a one-to-one consultation with me, please see the link below and you can check out my testimonials. If you'd like to ascend above the zodiac sign astrology and embrace a more serious understanding, you can do so in a very affordable way and check out my special offer for a 12-month forecast character analysis combination, 30% off based on your time, date and place of birth. No two reports are the same, and this will give you searing insights of the opportunities ahead for you and also a much greater understanding of what makes you tick. Hello Sagittarius and welcome to your in-depth horoscope forecast for May. You're someone with a tremendous appreciation of the big picture. This makes you a natural adventurer, whether it's in spirit, physically, through travel, or taking on challenges which expand your horizons. You don't like to be pinned in too much, so freedom's very important to many Sagittarius people. But as this month begins, you're being asked to grapple with the finer details of life. The sixth house, which is a very Virgoan feel, is represented by the Sun, Mercury, Venus and Uranus, all in the sign of Taurus. Taurus energy is about stability, but Uranus doesn't really like being in the sign of Taurus because Uranus is naturally about change. So there could be some changes that you're being asked to consider around your everyday routines. Now this could be around a job, it could be around your life structure, it could be around just basic organization, it could be around your attitude to physical vitality and health. The sixth house is naturally, because of its Virgo influence, rather influenced by virtue. So if you can clean up your act, so even if you're someone who has a real insight into what you eat and drink, tends to be very drilled in different elements of your life, so it all is working very smoothly, there are always different things that we can learn to look at situations in a fresh light, because Uranus is combining with the Sun. If, for example, on the first 3 days, if you have a job or a responsibility or obligation which really oppresses you, this can be a fine time to think again, to try to find a solution. And that solution may be quite innovative because Uranus asks us to flex, to do something in a fresh way. But also Mercury and Venus forge fine links with Pluto in your sector of everyday resources. So this could be a good time to think about decluttering, or to think about, in a relationship situation, who does and contributes what to the domestic load. If you're not quite giving it enough, or you're giving it too much and your partner's not taking enough responsibility, or the kids are swanning around, treating the place as a hotel, it's time to push back. So injecting your situation with a little bit more routine, structure, precision can be a very good thing to do. And even if you're someone who knows quite a lot about nutrition, this can be a fabulous time, particularly on the back of the new moon of the 11th, to revise your approach. There may be some things that sneak into your diet that you know don't necessarily agree with you, and yet you keep doing it. We all do it. But this is a time to think again whether there could be some adjustments that you could make. But then on the 4th, followed by the 9th with Venus, Mercury moves into your sector of relating, which is very exciting because Mercury, therefore, is going to be in its dignity in the sign of Gemini. It loves being there. And that's going to help you to move things on. Mercury in the sixth house can be a bit brittle, a bit tense. Moving it into the sign of Gemini on the 4th gives you the opportunity to discuss things in a more dispassionate way, something you're pretty good at doing anyway. Venus then moves there on the 9th, as I said before, But Venus is about reaching into situations and finding points of unity where we can celebrate the things we have in common. It's about collaboration and cooperation, finding harmony. So these are two lovely changes that occur early in the month, even though there is all this business-like stuff right at the start. Now on the 11th, that new moon also forges an angle, an enabling angle to Neptune. But Neptune's in your sector of the home and the family. If you want to work from home, or you've been forced to do so because of COVID regulations, this would be a prompt to try not just to work from home, but to find a way to make it work better for you. So that may mean having a space that's separate from the rest of the domestic sphere, so you can really concentrate and get the peace and tranquility, so you can really be much more efficient. On the 13th, however, your ruler Jupiter moves into the other sign that it governs, which is Pisces. And of course, Neptune's in this location too. So we have two planets in dignity at the same time. So this is quite rare. I mean, Jupiter's only in Pisces about every 12 years. Neptune, of course, is a much rarer occurrence, but it has been there since 2012. So Jupiter moving into this area can be brilliant if you're hoping to move home. So something can come to pass now which really does thrill you. And it may be something that you've been working towards for some while. If you're not able to physically move straight away, you can take the steps to trigger the consequences of that further down the line. From the 10th to the 15th, Mercury is also collaborating brilliantly with Saturn. What you say is what you mean across those 5 days. But then Mercury goes into shadow period. That's not a retrograde, but it is almost like a precursor. So the retrograde itself begins on the 29th of this month, the second air sign retrograde of the year. There's going to be 3. The third is in Libra. Last year we had that squidgeathon of all the retrogrades starting at least in water signs. But this year, it's much more to do with our ability to communicate clearly. And for you, this is about your relationships. So just be aware from mid-month, despite that very productive link between Mercury and Saturn just before then, that things could get a bit blurred. There could be some crosswise, and therefore you will need to work at it. Fortunately, from the 17th to the 19th, Venus forges its own highly helpful link to Saturn. Saturn is in the part of your scope to do with how you think, your base ideas, your values in some ways, certainly how you express them. It can be to do with modes of transport, especially things like motorcycles or bikes or electric scooters, because the third house is quick, sharp energy. The ninth house could be said to be much more to do with long distance travel. So with Venus forging the link to Saturn, I think if you have a conversation with someone and it is about a more romantic matter, the possibility here is that you can come to an agreement which both sides are quite satisfied with. It's likely to be quite stable, which comes from the energy of Saturn. Venus can be flirty, particularly in Gemini, but Saturn provides some anchoring here. However, from the 18th to the 24th, the Sun is squaring with Jupiter. It's a disassociate square, so Jupiter's right at the start of Pisces. It only gets up to 1 degree this year anyway, and the Sun's not quite in Gemini. That moves on the 20th, and then on the 20th it will be an associate square. So what we have by then is the air of the Sun squaring with the water of Jupiter. Now, Sun square Jupiter can, in a natal chart, lead people to be very generous, very benevolent, very helpful to people, the type of come-hearty type of individual, kind of Sagittarius energy, but a little bit more turned up to max. So the key for you during this is just to be aware around any commitments around your family or a home situation, that what you promise is actually deliverable. But just before then, the Sun does make a very productive link with Pluto. And Pluto, of course, is about very deep changes. Saturn's much more about the status quo. It's the manager of time. And Pluto can be a very deep lion, sometimes can be about subterfuge, it can be about secrets. But I think for you, it's about your resources. And the more disciplined you are about managing change in your situation, the more you can start to see the benefit of all the hard work and application you've put into those small details right at the start of this month. On the 23rd, however, Saturn does go retrograde. Will your car break down over the next 5 months? It's possible. I think it's much more likely to be technology. Third house rules things like phones, laptops, Tinternet, this kind of stuff. So that could be an area that could cause some aggravation. Or you may find that you're mixing with people immediately around you that are not quite your cup of tea. Perhaps they're a bit too friendly, perhaps they're a bit too cool. There may be a chilling off in a relationship with a sibling, because the third house is governs sibling relationships too. But Saturn, remember, even in a retrograde, is about the harder we work, the luckier we get. A lot of astrologers will never talk about Saturn in terms of fortune. They only ever talk about Jupiter. Believe me, when Saturn moves across a house cusp and you've really put the application in, you will have fortune. It's one of those things that comes from experience of doing lots of personal readings. But on the 26th, the full moon is in your sign, and I think it's flagging to you. If you're unhappy in a relationship and you've really been reaching into someone else's situation through Mercury, listening to them, through Venus, compromising with them, through the Sun, challenging them a bit, but at the same time telling them what you need. If you've been doing all of that stuff and someone's been very resistant to what you've been saying, perhaps they're still nitpicking back to that 6th house stuff at the start of the month, I think this full moon can see you push back much more assertively. And it doesn't mean to say the relationship's going to be terminal, but I do feel it's important for you to choose your words carefully if you do need to articulate your side of the situation. Because with Saturn in retrograde in your 3rd house of everyday communication and governing things like text messages and emails, it would be easy to fire off one that is blunt. And if you're honest, you can be a bit blunt at times, Sagittarius. And then with Mercury going retrograde, even if you send a message or say something to someone, it may not be received in the way that you mean it because of those potential for cross wires. So for us all, it is going to be important to work at our communications as this month draws to a close. But look at it another way. If you're single, that full moon in Sagittarius could bring someone into your inner orbit who you find to be very exciting, because a full moon can be the manifestation of the energy or where we set our intentions further down the track. So I think for you, if you were really hoping, particularly on the back of that solar eclipse on the 14th of December, to think about the things that you wanted to achieve for you, the individual, now you can measure it about how it's working in your closest interactions and make some decisions. But it could bring someone into your world if you're single. So quite a pragmatic start to the month, Sagittarius, but an exciting possibility around relationships of all kind as the month goes on, as long as you can negotiate some of those celestial pitfalls that I've explained to you. But for now, take care, good luck, and goodbye.